Brendan O'Carroll as Agnes Brown.
You know it's cold here as well. I passed a dog the other day and he was stuck to a lamppost.
Brendan O'Carroll is the very soul of the series, delivering a masterful transformation into Agnes Brown, the domineering Irish matriarch whose blunt, no-nonsense demeanor conceals a deeply warm heart. Through impeccable timing, charm, and razor-sharp humor, he turned Agnes into an enduring cultural icon, imprinting on audiences the unforgettable image of a mother who is at once infuriating and irresistibly lovable. That role carried him from near obscurity to the summit of global fame.
Didn't really work, did they?
Actually, they did. I used to say, fuck off. Now I say, that's nice.
Yet few realize that Agnes Brown was born from the ashes of Brendan's own life. Long before the spotlight ever found him, he was consumed by despair after the collapse of his first marriage and crushed under a staggering £1.2 million debt following the failure of the film Sparrow's Trap. He later described himself during that period as emotionally paralyzed, sitting in darkness for days on end, uncertain whether tomorrow would even arrive. And when success finally came, it arrived with a cruel curse, relentless lawsuits, public feuds with former collaborators, and the media's branding of him as a comedic dictator, turning his private life into a waking nightmare.
Dermot's taking Maria off to Venice for the weekend. She's going to be going up and down in their gonorrhea.
The tragedy reached its peak when the man who brought laughter to millions was left utterly depleted by loneliness and illness. Behind the cheerful makeup stood an aging body screaming in pain, weakened legs after multiple knee replacement surgeries, and the constant shadow of prediabetes, diagnosed in 2024. The sense of betrayal by once trusted co-stars such as Rory Cowan and Gary Hollywood dealt a devastating blow to his spirit. Brendan found himself living under merciless scrutiny, battling the crushing exhaustion of his 70s, where fame was no longer a reward, but a suffocating burden, robbing the aging artist of his final fragments of peace. And yet, Brendan O'Carroll has remained standing, like an ancient tree weathering every storm, clinging to the laughter of his audience as his final lifeline. In the twilight of his life, wounded but unbroken, he leaves behind an extraordinary legacy. Agnes Brown will endure as an immortal monument, a testament to the truth that the brightest laughter is often born from the deepest, most silent pain. Some believe Brendan's strictness was a necessary price to pay for sustaining the success of an empire. Others, however, feel a deep sense of sorrow for the loneliness he was forced to endure at the very peak of fame. What do you think about the true cost of this kind of success? Comment 1 if you empathize with Brendan and understand his choices, or 0 if you believe he should have let go to Finn. Jennifer Gibney as Cathy Brown.
92 Grandad Court Fingers.
Jesus!
Jennifer Gibney brought to the screen a sharp, independent Cathy Brown, a modern counterweight perfectly opposed to Agnes's old-fashioned rigidity. What made the dynamic even more fascinating was that she was playing the on-screen daughter of her real-life husband, Brendan O'Carroll. Their effortless chemistry and quick-witted verbal sparring created a unique appeal, turning Cathy into a symbol of modern daughters who long to step out from the shadow of their families.
The way you feel,
today. What is she fucking talking about?
Ironically, when the curtain fell, Jennifer found herself facing emotional distance within the O'Carroll family itself. Her relationship with her husband's children from a previous marriage was marked by years of unspoken tension and quiet hostility, stretching across nearly a decade and leaving the household perpetually strained. As if that were not enough, her attempt to break into film with Mrs. Brown's Boys D movie was met with brutal critical backlash. Reviewers dismissed her performance as stiff and accused her of choosing the wrong role, words that pierced deeply into her artistic pride. Jennifer later admitted she broke down in tears while reading the merciless headlines, shaken to her core by their cruelty.
It's fucking huge! I don't know what she's shoving into it, but it's more than kitty cat.
The true nightmare began when her health started to spiral out of control. Entering menopause, Jennifer's body turned against her, unleashing relentless anxiety and a crushing fatigue that drained her of all vitality. A sudden weight gain of nearly 18 kilograms dealt a devastating blow to her confidence as an actress constantly judged by public appearance. Desperate to keep going, she turned to hormone replacement therapy simply to find the strength to step back onto the stage. Those months became a daily battle with her own failing body, hiding fear and self-doubt beneath layers of makeup, forcing a smile while her mind screamed with exhaustion. Crossing into her 60s, Jennifer chose a slower, quieter life divided between Florida and Dublin, accepting time's changes as unavoidable truths. She has remained devoted to the theater, a testament to her resilience and unwavering loyalty to her craft, even as she carries emotional scars that may never fully heal. Rory Cowan as Rory Brown.
Ah, pissy. Here, Dino, show Mammy your balls. They're huge, Mammy.
Rory Cowan was once the warm heart of Mrs. Brown's boys in his role as Rory Brown, the devoted son. His openness, cheerful spirit, and playfully flamboyant charm shattered stereotypes, turning Rory into one of the show's most beloved characters. Audiences found in him not only satirical humor but also deep empathy, a radiant embodiment of kindness within an otherwise chaotic family portrait.
I knew you'd take a heart, but please try to think of my happiness.
Behind that ever-present smile, however, lay 26 long years of endurance and suppressed resentment. Once the most loyal companion of all, Rory eventually became disillusioned when he felt he was treated little more than a slave within Brendan O'Carroll's money-making machine. In 2017, he made the painful decision to walk away, fully aware that the cost would be permanent estrangement from the O'Carroll family. Soon after, the pandemic struck like a final blow, crushing his dream of opening a restaurant and pushing him to the brink of bankruptcy, leaving the former star trapped in a devastating dead end.
I think you mean Gorgonzola.
The depth of his suffering emerged when Rory later confessed to having fallen into clinical depression for a full 18 months. He described that period as living underwater, where everything felt distorted, suffocating, and unreal. With no stage lights, no income, and no audience, Rory faced absolute loneliness within 4 cold walls. A crushing sense of helplessness took hold as he realized he had lost everything, from a 30-year friendship to the career he had spent a lifetime building. Those were his darkest days, when waking each morning meant simply continuing the weight of despair, and the will to live seemed to have been completely stripped from the soul of the aging artist. Today, at 66, although the spotlight has long faded and his fortune is only a shadow of what it once was, Rory Cowan continues to move forward with quiet resilience. His story of departure and survival stands as a testament to dignity and self-respect, even when the price paid is the unhealed sorrow of a friendship that did not survive. Eilish O'Carroll as Winnie McGoogan. Eilish O'Carroll breathed life into Winnie McGoogan, the naive, clumsy neighbor whose kindness is so pure it borders on heartbreaking. The quiet, almost magical friendship between Winnie and Agnes became the emotional anchor of the entire series, offering viewers moments of gentle comfort. Winnie's innocent smile on screen felt like a healing balm, reassuring audiences that there are still untroubled souls in the world, untouched by bitterness or fear.
Do you know the inflatable titties that Cathy got?
Uh-huh.
I'm wearing them.
You are not.
Hidden beneath that carefree exterior, however, was an Eilish O'Carroll imprisoned within a loveless marriage that lasted 32 years. She lived in the shadows of self-denial, slowly fading while guarding the truth of her sexuality in a deeply conservative Ireland. When she chose to come out at the age of 50, the decision shattered family bonds and led to a painful estrangement from her own brother, Brendan. The tabloid press descended like vultures, tearing into her private life and turning her most intimate pain into cheap public spectacle.
I'm ready, yeah, whenever you are.
Expose the relevant area.
What the fuck does that mean?
Get your knickers down.
The storm reached its most violent point in 2005, when relentless public pressure and isolation pushed Eilish to the edge of suicide. She sank into profound depression, convinced she was a sinner cast aside by the world. Even her 2018 memoir, intended as a form of release, reopened old wounds when Brendan accused her of exposing the family's private suffering. The COVID-19 pandemic delivered another devastating blow, bankrupting her theater company and forcing the aging artist to sell off her possessions simply to survive. It was then that she fully grasped the cruelty of fame, how it can lift you toward the sky, only to abandon you in the coldest depths. Having weathered every storm, Eilish, now 73, has finally found peace alongside her partner, Barbara. She has emerged as a powerful voice for the LGBTQ+ community, transforming past suffering into strength and advocacy. Her greatest fortune is not measured in wealth, but in the freedom to live authentically, a freedom she claimed after more than half a lifetime spent in silence. Gary Hollywood as Dino Doyle.
They're called baubles.
Whatever. Show Mammy.
Aren't they lovely?
Gary Hollywood entered the Brown household as Dino Doyle, the quick-witted Scottish hairdresser and Rory's closest friend. With his unmistakable accent and sharp comedic timing, Gary injected the show with fresh energy and vitality. He quickly became an indispensable presence, offering moments of gentle, understated humor that helped balance Agnes Brown's controlled chaos in the hearts of viewers.
First, a business plan.
Right. Let's get back to the apartment and start working on it.
Right.
Yet Gary's real life unfolded as a far harsher script than anything written for television. After nearly 3 decades of dedication, he was forced out of the show in a bitter and highly publicized separation in 2020. Allegations of being paid up to 50% less than his co-stars, along with claims of bullying and discrimination, exposed an unsettling reality behind the scenes. His £2.6 million lawsuit sent shockwaves through the media, but it also became a double-edged sword, severing future career paths and leaving him effectively blacklisted by broadcasters and shunned by former colleagues. The cost of speaking out proved devastating, both physically and mentally. Gary plunged into financial turmoil as his income collapsed by 80%, while mounting economic pressure pushed his marriage to the brink of collapse. In 2021, the ordeal reached a critical point when he was rushed to hospital in life-threatening condition due to severe anxiety and panic disorders. The once light-hearted performer was now a broken man, haunted by sleepless nights and relentless psychological distress. He described the experience as living inside an endless nightmare, a place where career and reputation shattered into fragments, leaving only fear and emptiness behind. Now, Gary has chosen a quieter life, retreating from the controversies that once overwhelmed him to focus on healing his emotional wounds. Though the spotlight has faded, the story of Gary Hollywood endures as a haunting and tragic chapter, a stark warning about the brutal cost of fame once the curtain finally falls. Paddy Houlihan as Dermot Brown.
I can't believe Peggy Piper, who poisoned her partner Peter Piper by plonking poison powder into his perno, is getting out of prison.
Paddy Houlihan etched himself into viewers' memories through the character of Dermot Brown, the big-bodied yet dim-witted son forever caught between the schemes of his best friend Buster and the suffocating control of his mother Agnes. His deliberately awkward performance, tinged with childlike innocence, delivered waves of laughter and turned Dermot into the beloved man-child, the boy who never quite grew up and whom audiences instinctively adored.
That'd be great, Mummy. Tea in our house. The family tea.
And with Trevor home, a really special one.
Yeah.
When the curtain fell, a far harsher reality emerged. A childhood friend of Brendan O'Carroll, Paddy pushed himself to exhaustion through what felt like endless tours. He regarded Brendan as a brother, yet that very loyalty drove his body to its limits. Relentless schedules eroded his physical strength, transforming passion into an overwhelming burden. When the pandemic struck, it didn't merely silence the stage. It thrust Paddy into a lonely and brutal battle far more unforgiving than any role he had ever played. In 2021, death came frighteningly close when COVID-19 attacked his lungs with devastating force. Paddy was completely isolated in intensive care for 12 days and nights, where the hiss of a ventilator became the only sound tethering him to life. Doctors later told him he had permanently lost 40% of his lung capacity, and every breath felt like a painful struggle. Lying motionless beneath a web of tubes and wires, his greatest fear was not dying, but the thought that he might never see his family again. Those were his darkest hours, when the line between life and death felt impossibly thin. Surviving that encounter with mortality, Paddy returned with a renewed reverence for every heartbeat. He scaled back his work and devoted himself to healing his damaged body. His recovery stands as a powerful reminder of the cost of neglecting one's health and the priceless value of life once it nearly slips away. Dermot O'Neill as Grandad Brown.
What's wrong with you, Grandad?
Haven't slept for 3 days.
Dermot O'Neill brought to life a Grandad Brown who was gruff, absent-minded, yet irresistibly lovable. His deadpan reactions and bewildered frowns became essential seasoning in every episode. The effortless chemistry between him and Brendan transformed the grandfather into an emotional anchor, a steady presence that perfectly balanced the relentless noise and chaos of the Brown household.
Get right answers.
Is correct. And if you get the wrong answers, he'll...
Shoot me.
with a big gun.
Paradoxically, 4 decades of unwavering loyalty to Brendan O'Carroll came at a steep personal cost. The unrelenting pace of work gradually drained the strength of an aging man. In 2020, disaster struck when a sudden stroke robbed him of his voice for 3 long months. For an actor, losing the power of speech is more than a medical setback. It is the loss of the one tool essential to survival.
Press it harder. A child who can...
Rehabilitation became a prolonged ordeal marked by tears and helplessness. Trapped inside his own mind, he knew what he wanted to say but could not force the words out. The confidence that once defined him on stage was shattered, replaced by a constant fear of becoming a burden to others. Though he fought to return to the spotlight, the after-effects of his illness lingered, turning every appearance into a physical struggle against frailty. The blow to his dignity, no longer being as agile or capable as before, cut deeply into the soul of the aging artist. Dermot O'Neill ultimately chose to step back behind the scenes, seeking peace with his family in Dublin. While his appearances have grown rare, he continues to be honored by fans as a silent warrior, a man who gave his youth and his health in exchange for laughter, leaving behind a legacy of quiet sacrifice and enduring devotion. Fiona O'Carroll as Maria Brown.
I cut the edges off so they fit in the mug.
Oh, I see.
Fiona O'Carroll portrayed Maria Brown, Dermot's gentle, long-suffering wife and Agnes's daughter-in-law. She served as the emotional bridge that kept the Brown family's madness from completely derailing. Maria's calm and tender presence on screen led many viewers to assume that Fiona herself lived a similarly peaceful life, wrapped in the soft protection of a famous and powerful family.
I'm sorry that he has to put up with such a domineering matriarch as you.
I was hoping for something shorter than that.
Away from the set, however, Fiona's reality was far more somber and pressure-filled. As the daughter of empire builder Brendan, she grew up beneath the heavy weight of expectation to carry on the family legacy. Her 16-year marriage to co-star Martin Delaney, who played Dermot, slowly unraveled under the strain of work and irreconcilable differences. In 2022, that home officially collapsed, leaving Fiona to raise 4 sons alone, 3 of whom have been diagnosed with autism. The relentless demands of single motherhood, combined with the responsibility of caring for children with special needs, drained her strength day after day. The emotional aftermath of divorce pulled Fiona into the depths of depression. She has openly admitted to gaining more than 20 kilograms during that dark period, when food became her only refuge from pain. The image of a strong woman on stage vanished completely, replaced by an exhausted single mother struggling with body insecurity and constant anxiety about her children's future. She was forced to turn down numerous television roles, retreating into a protective shell as her confidence to face the camera lights disappeared. The sense of failure in her marriage, paired with helplessness over her children's conditions, felt like 2 immense weights crushing her mind. At 45, Fiona has learned how to rise from the ruins and become a resilient mother for her sons. She now dedicates her energy to advocacy and support for children with autism, transforming personal pain into purpose for the wider community. Fiona stands as a poignant reminder that even within comedy, not every daughter of Mrs. Brown is granted a happy ending. Amanda Woods as Betty Brown.
Mrs. Brown, what did I ask you? Don't be giving him money.
I'm his granny, I'll do whatever I fucking like.
Sometimes I think he's better off with no granny.
Amanda Woods shaped Betty Brown into a calm harbor at the heart of the storm. As Mark's wife, Betty embodies composure, insight, and the steady voice of reason within the Brown family's constant turmoil. Amanda's warm, mature beauty and natural performance earned the character widespread affection, making Betty a dependable foundation that allowed others around her to shine.
Well, you can cook him as many dinners as you like, but you tell him if it's a wife he wants, you better call.
Ironically, being part of the O'Carroll empire, as the wife of Danny O'Carroll, Brendan's son, meant Amanda carried a double burden. She was both an actress and a daughter-in-law within a high-profile family. The exhaustion of raising children combined with a relentless touring schedule quietly wore down her spirit. But the most harrowing turning point came in 2022, when a serious car accident shattered the fragile sense of peace she had worked so hard to preserve. The violent impact left Amanda with 3 broken ribs and months of intense physical pain. The image of the mangled car haunted her sleep, a constant reminder of how fragile life truly is. She was forced to miss numerous performances, leaving a noticeable absence on stage and deep concern among fans. Pain with every breath and movement turned even the simplest daily tasks into torment. That accident inflicted more than physical injuries. It carved a deep psychological scar, forcing her to confront how relentlessly she had pushed herself for fame while neglecting her own safety.
Maria's right. She's getting worse. I'm afraid to let her go near Bono. She keeps trying to lick him.
Currently, Amanda has completely redefined her priorities. She now spends much of her time in a quiet retreat in Donegal, rediscovering balance alongside her children and surrounded by nature. Her decision to step away from the glare of public life stands as a quiet lesson in knowing when to let go, and how true happiness is often found not in applause, but in inner peace. Danny O'Carroll as Buster Brady.
€1 a ticket. I put on the tickets €5,000 first prize. I tell the people if they win, I'll call them.
Danny O'Carroll infused Buster Brady with explosive energy, transforming Dermot's troublesome best friend into a foolish yet strangely endearing character. His ridiculous get-rich-quick schemes and wildly playful performance became the spark behind some of the show's loudest laughs, leaving audiences eagerly anticipating every new appearance and every new outrageous idea Buster might unleash.
So, Dermot, what do you want me for?
I wanted to see if you fancy doing Robin next week.
Yeah?
Yet fate seemed cruelly ironic as the line between reckless comedy on screen and real life began to blur. As Brendan's biological son, Danny lived under an unspoken pressure to shine, but youthful immaturity pulled him toward dangerous temptations. In 2019, the grip of gambling overtook the rising star's judgment. The addiction didn't just wipe out his savings, it dragged him into mounting debt, ultimately forcing him to sell his own home at the price of impulsive mistakes.
These are last year's.
Watch. No, they're this year's.
The lowest point of despair went far beyond the £180,000 that vanished in an instant. The deepest wound came from his father's punishment. Although Brendan O'Carroll stepped in to rescue his son from financial ruin, he chose to sever all contact for 6 long months. That silence was more terrifying to Danny than death itself. He lived in profound remorse, tormented by the belief that he had betrayed the trust of the person he loved most. The isolation from his family felt like a merciless moral sentence, driving him to consider abandoning acting altogether under the crushing weight of guilt. Today, Danny has shed his troubled past and rebuilt his life in Donegal. He has found peace alongside his wife and children, while slowly repairing the bond with his father. His return stands as quiet proof that trust can be restored, if one has the courage to rise, take responsibility, and grow beyond one's mistakes. Susie Blake as Hilary Nicholson.
Here, Mrs. Nicholson, how do you clean dead flies off your flapper? What?
Veteran actress Susie Blake brought elegance and razor-sharp wit to the role of Hilary Nicholson, the aristocratic neighbor who constantly clashed with Agnes. Her refined British accent and poised demeanor created a perfect comedic contrast, turning Hilary into a delightfully memorable antagonist, one audiences could never forget, and an essential piece of the show's comic tapestry.
When he found out I was pregnant, he bought me this diamond ring.
That's nice.
And then when I was 5 months pregnant, he took me away for the weekend to Paris. That's France.
Yet beneath that formidable exterior, Susie was quietly fighting a battle for her life. In 2018, doctors delivered what felt like a death sentence, a diagnosis of stage 2 throat cancer. Treatment plunged her into a living nightmare. 35 consecutive rounds of radiotherapy that stripped her of her voice for months on end. As if that ordeal were not enough, in 2020 she endured another devastating blow when her beloved mother passed away at the age of 99, right in the heart of the pandemic, leaving Susie painfully alone in a world turned upside down.
I'm sorry. I'm finding what to hear. I'm in a bad area.
Grief compounded upon suffering, Susie slipped into deep depression during the isolating months of lockdown. She later confessed that for the first time in her life she experienced loneliness as a physical sensation, an invisible monster gnawing relentlessly at her core. Living alone in an empty house, unable to see anyone, battling the after-effects of cancer while mourning her mother, she felt utterly abandoned by the world. The suffocating silence of her home stood in stark contrast to the thunderous applause she once knew, pulling the actress into a pit of despair where her voice felt fragile and powerless against an unforgiving fate. Having survived both death's door and unimaginable loss, Susie Blake eventually returned to the stage with extraordinary resilience. Her voice may no longer carry the same strength as before, but her presence alone stands as living proof of human endurance. She is a true warrior, and her legacy will remain a lasting source of inspiration for anyone facing adversity. Damien McKiernan as Rory Brown. Damien McKiernan bravely stepped into the enormous shoes left behind by his predecessor to take on the role of Rory Brown. Rather than imitating the original performance, he offered a distinctly different interpretation, quieter, gentler, and far more introspective. This shift gave the character a fresh emotional dimension, allowing Rory to feel more grounded and relatable to open-minded viewers. Accepting the role also meant turning himself into a lightning rod for public outrage. Damien faced not only professional pressure, but also a brutal backlash from extremist fans. For 5 relentless years, he was trapped in a storm of online hostility, where thousands of vicious comments branded him a fraud and dismissed every ounce of his artistic effort. Living under the towering shadow of his predecessor, while enduring constant anonymous attacks, dealt a serious blow to his self-worth. The psychological torment of the digital world pushed Damien to the brink of collapse. He described the ordeal as being tied up and beaten while the crowd cheers. The fear of being despised forced him to withdraw inward, at times leaving him wanting to abandon everything and flee the spotlight altogether. Keyboard cruelty robbed him of the joy of acting and steadily eroded his mental health, planting deep doubts about his own abilities. It was a profoundly unequal battle, one in which the victim was denied recognition and left to silently swallow tears each time the phone screen lit up with another wave of abuse. Today, Damien has found a new path by stepping behind the scenes to focus on writing and directing. He has transformed his psychological scars into hard-earned lessons, working to protect younger actors from the harm of online bullying. His resilience has become his strongest shield against the cruelty of public judgment. As the curtain falls, what remains is not only laughter, but deep respect for the artists who turned private pain into shared joy. No matter how harsh their real lives may have been, their sacrifices and legacies continue to shine in our memories. Which story from the Brown family moved you the most? Share your thoughts below, and subscribe to the channel as we continue preserving these priceless memories together.